Police end up catching 6 of the 8 killers the same night of the accident. They were arrested right away, which is exciting, right? But they were very quickly released because of something called the criminal age of responsibility in South Korea. Korea's criminal law Article 9 states the acts of minors under the age of 14 years old are not punishable by law.
Anything?
Anything. I mean, this is probably the worst. This is murder. Lee Kun worked as a delivery driver in Korea. He's 18. So there is a car going straight and a motorcycle was trying to go straight. The car ran a red light. They literally pedaled to the metal. Motorcycle is trying to head north. There is a black car to the motorcycle's left that's trying to go right. So they're gonna be perpendicular. Now the motorcycle has the right of way. So they start inching towards the middle of the intersection. The black car on the left, they have a red light, but they just decide to book it. Like 0 to 60, book it. Run the red light, and at the cross section, they slam into each other. And you just see motorcycle parts, tires flying in the air. A lot of people see a limp body just on the side of the road. Emergency services, let me explain it the way that they did, because they know what these motorcycles looks like. They know what these accidents look like. They say you take one look at this motorcycle, and they thought to themselves, it would be a miracle if the driver survived. They rush him to the nearest hospital where the doctors looked at the clock and they called the time of death. This man's name was Lee Kun. He had lived exactly 18 years and 97 days before he had been killed. So first, let's talk about the accident. This, like I said, is a 4-way intersection, and Kun was headed straight. He had the right of way when a car on his left comes in crashing into him from the side. This is clearly an accident caused by the car on the left that ran the red light. And then they just left him there. Out on the side of the road, they didn't even stop. The people in the car, there were 8 people in this sedan. They abandoned the car on the street because the car clearly looked like it had been a part of the deadly accident. It clearly wouldn't drive anymore. All of the airbags were out, and they get out on foot and start booking it. They run for their lives, but ultimately they were arrested. The police also tracked down the registered car owner, so the owner of the car, and he was a resident of Seoul, and he was in Seoul at the time of the crash, which is confusing because Seoul is about 65 miles away from Daejeon. So why is your car in Daejeon? Like, do you know any of the people that were in the car? And he's like, my car was stolen 2 nights ago. The police end up catching 6 of the 8 killers the same night of the accident. They were arrested right away, which is exciting, right? But they were very quickly released because of something called the criminal age of responsibility in South Korea. Korea's criminal law Article 9 states the acts of minors under the age of 14 years old are not punishable by law. So these...
Anything?
Anything. I mean, this is probably the worst. This is murder. In extreme cases, you can get 2 years in a youth detention center, but that's very rare, almost unheard of. So basically, anything. These killers were released before the car owner even knew what happened to his car. That's how insane this is. They were released even though the police see them. They know that they have a history of committing crime after crime. These 13-year-olds, they know the law. They know that they will not be responsible since they're not 14 yet, and they use it to their advantage. Just about 24 hours before the murder, 8 kids steal a car in Seoul. This is the first car they steal because they're going to steal another car immediately after the murder. So they steal car number 1. This is the car that's going to be used in the accident, the deadly accident. They drive around the city for 24 hours. They're like hanging out, going to bars, like doing all of these illegal festivities. And 24 hours later, at around 12 a.m., they end up in Daejeon and they kill Kun. Now, from there, they all start running. 6 of the teenagers were caught that night on foot. 2 were not. 2 kids, 2 of the guys, they were not caught. They ran to a nearby town and stole another car at 4 in the morning. There is CCTV of them, like footage of them stealing the second car. And I don't want anyone to victim blame because it's just different cultures. So a lot of people in Korea don't really lock their car doors either. So the parking culture is there, and typically with theft, especially car theft, it's not that common. Korea is filled with CCTV. It's really hard to get away with stealing, let alone a purse, but a full vehicle. No adult would commit this crime because they would go to prison and it would be so easy to catch them. But these kids literally know that they will not be punished, so they don't care about getting caught. So after they use a stolen car to murder an innocent person, they steal another one. And in the CCTV footage, you can see them walking with their hands in their pockets, leisurely, as if they own this world, as if they own this parking lot. They find an unlocked car. They take the car and they leave. Now, the owner realizes the very next morning that his his car was stolen and he alerts the police. By then, the 2 teens that had stolen the car drove it all the way back to Seoul, and the car was eventually found. The last 2 perpetrators were found, arrested, and very quickly released. So all 8 of them have been found, arrested, identified, and released. I cannot imagine how infuriating this is for Kun's mom and all of his loved ones, knowing that the police know who the killers are, know where they live, know what they look like, know what school they go to, and they're just like, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Just to show you how angering this law is, these kids had gotten into trouble with the law multiple times prior to the murder, if not days before the murder. So just a few weeks before the murder, a few members of the group robbed a Korean barbecue restaurant. They were found rummaging through the cash register, taking anything of value after restaurant hours. They previously stole multiple other vehicles. Then they would take those stolen vehicles to gas stations around town and rob the gas stations. There's at least 3 gas stations that we know of that they were caught robbing. We know of 3, there could easily be more. But these kids, they would steal cash, alcohol, whatever they wanted. They would steal alcohol from restaurants. They would wreck restaurants, tear them apart, trash them, throw out their safes. Again, this is all happening a month prior to Kun's murder. And these idiots are not criminal masterminds. They were basically caught each and every single time. They even have pictures of them posing on stolen cars. There's even a selfie that a couple of them took at a police station. They're posing and it's captioned, Kumi Police Station, escape plan in progress. I mean, at this point, they are being protected by the law rather than being punished for their crimes. Even just 4 days before the death of Kun, one of the perpetrators stole a car, got into a car accident. Thankfully, nobody was injured or fatally wounded, but there were articles and headlines talking about this accident, talking about how a minor had stolen a car and crashed it. The criminal, the minor, decides to repost the article on social media and laugh about how he broke the law. It was making headlines, and guess what? Nothing happened to him. 4 days later, Kun would be murdered. And even after a man is now dead, a son is now gone, the police let these kids go. Do these killers show remorse? Do they change? Because that's what the law is supposed to be for, right? The kids under 14 have no ability to critically think. So they need guidance to know what's right and what's wrong. And they're getting this guidance and learning from literally murdering someone. Even though the police are clearly not doing anything about it, the public starts hearing about this case, and slowly the identities of these perpetrators are basically getting out. So their social media accounts are getting out. Most of it was due to their fellow classmates being so disgusted by their actions that they would post about them to out them, which, like, good for them. After the murder, some of the teens were actively posting on social media showing zero remorse. One posted a selfie and said, "Please wait for me if I go to jail." Another one said, "One selfie before I go to jail." Another wrote, "I'm gonna go to prison, so write me a lot of letters." No, really, I'm gonna go to jail, so you better write me. And don't say you guys don't have enough time to write me letters. Just write me a letter and send it to me. Another one wrote, "Please write me letters. Let's all be healthy and see you guys after a month. Love you all, my friends." Heart emoji. A few of the other perpetrators were outed because they had incredibly despicable conversations with fellow students. Side note, when these text messages were released, most of the perpetrators' names were blurred, but other classmates and students started outing them. A lot of their social media has been made public and since then been deleted, but regardless, these text messages being released showed everyone, the public, it proved that these perpetrators, these so-called kids that we need to protect, they don't have remorse. They never even privately apologized to the victim's mother. Where the hell are the parents? They didn't even come home for nearly the whole day, 24 hours. Where the hell are the parents? And how much are we to blame the parents in something like this? Do you guys all know about the age of criminal responsibility? So it's clear to the public, these monsters knew that because they weren't 14 years old yet, they wouldn't be punished for killing someone. They didn't even think that what they did was even that wrong. Side note, the law does state for a very serious crime, minors can be punished by a maximum of 2 years in a youth detention center, which, couple of things. I hear juvie in South Korea is nothing like juvie in the US. I hear it's a really nice little therapeutic center where you and your little friends, you and your little criminal buddies hang out and have a good time and play games and play basketball and giggle gaggle. Some of the fellow classmates of these perpetrators were interviewed and they said, "I don't think they're scared of the law." They used to brag about all the crimes they commit in class. Look, they know the punishment is very minimal since they're 13 and their birthdays didn't pass yet, so they know that they're good. They know a lot of older brothers and friends in the youth detention center. I think even if they go, I heard they're gonna have fun. From my perspective, I think even if they were sent the biggest punishment, which is 2 years there, I think they'll have fun, get out, and continue committing crimes. If the law says you can't blame the quote kids, if the law says that, I'm not saying that, the law is saying that, can you blame the parents? Because someone has to take accountability, right? The reporters reach out to the mom of the driver. She was interviewed and she said, you know, my family and I are having a hard time too. My son made a mistake. All I can say is, sorry. That's the only thing I can do, and I feel like it's not enough. Okay, fine. Yeah, it's not enough. Here's another thing. The public, we're not emotional idiots. You don't think that we don't know that a perpetrator's family can also be suffering after a crime, but why would you even mention it? It is so gross. I feel like that kind of thinking gives me. Like me. This is what your kids grew up around, and look what they've become. Also, what do you mean you feel like it's not enough? Why don't you get your son to do something then, to apologize to the victim's mom? Like, there's so many more things that you could do. Reporters found another perpetrator's dad who was willing to talk, and he just told everyone that his son is reflecting on his actions. And the reporter said, from what we know, this is not the first crime that your son has committed. Yeah, he's committed a few crimes. The police said it was like 21 crimes. I can't handle him, okay? I just can't deal. Anyway, all I can say is I'm sorry. After hearing from the parents, the reporters went back to the two girls, the two perpetrators, and asked, after all that's been said and done, is there anything else that you want to say to the bereaved family? We're really sorry, but we didn't do it deliberately. It really was a mistake. The person who passed, they don't have any fault in this. Yeah, we know. She continues, it's because we ran a red light, and we think the only thing we can say is sorry. So after this case goes viral, a lot of netizens were enraged. They are questioning why this law was even put into effect. A researcher from the Korea Institute of Criminology and Justice said, after the Korean War in 1953, 1950s was a different time. Kids were not as educated as they are today. Most kids weren't getting a strong education, and they were a little bit delayed mentally, physically, emotionally. So we put this law into effect that minors, and every age is classified. So minors under the age of 10 that commit a crime are called law-violating children. Nothing happens to them. Those between the ages of 10 and 14 are classified as law-breaching minors. Nothing happens to them. Then those between the ages of 14 and 19 are called the criminal youth, and something happens to them, but they're not treated like adults. They're still not treated as killers, even if they literally kill or assault someone. They still have their own little system that they go through, which is not as harsh as adult trials. But the biggest problem in Korea are not even the children that are between the ages of 14 and 19, because they still face some consequences to a degree. It seems the biggest problem are between the ages of 10 and 13, because they face no consequences. This law hasn't really been updated, reviewed, or changed since the 50s, but this researcher is saying kids are no longer the same. They're not the same as they were in the 50s. First of all, 13-year-olds back in the 50s, they had no idea this law existed. They didn't have social media to know about this law. They didn't really have news to know about other kids that were committing crimes and got away because of this law. They probably thought that they would be punished if they ever committed a crime. They probably thought that they would be charged as an adult if they committed a crime. The researcher also stated that minors in the 50s, their growth mentally and physically was a bit behind from minors now, because you don't have access to the foods that they have now. You don't have access to the education, the mental development, but also social media. So they're saying, times are changing, and it's not to say it's for the better or for the worse. Laws need to be updated. According to the National Police Agency statistics, between 2015 and 2018, there were 28,000 cases of minors committing crimes. Among the 28,000 cases in South Korea, and this is just between the ages of 10 and 13, 77% of these crimes were felonies: theft, violence, assault, robbery, murder. This is not pickpocketing. A police officer even said, these teenagers know that they're not going to be severely punished by law, even if they commit a serious crime. I mean, there are times that these kids just outright tell me, I know I'm not going to be punished. It was revealed that 7 of the 8 kids went back home with basically no consequences, no parole, nothing. The driver of the car, because it was pretty severe, was sent to a youth detention center. Netizens were outraged. They were commenting things like, the thought that these people can ever change or be fixed is insane to me. Just abolish the law protecting minors. Another netizen commented, times have changed. Minors have changed. Why is the law stuck in the past? These days, you can even buy a knife on the internet. If we forgive them because of their age, they will never learn that they should never do this. Instead, they will learn if we commit a crime, we will be forgiven because we're young. A year or two after the crime, so very recently, reporters found out what the perpetrators were up to now. At least 3 of them were back to committing crimes. 3 of them assaulted younger middle school students and stole their money. After what they did, they're still laughing and acting confident without any feelings of guilt or remorse. I doubt that they're more immature than an adult. But so far, that was in 2020, and nothing has changed.